Hello there guys, Francis Gray here and welcome back to a new build video. And in today's video we're going to be starting to build a one-off unique chess set on everyone's favourite franchise, Plants vs Zombies. I'll see you after this. Okay guys, so welcome to a brand new build. So in order to make this chessboard work, we need to try and recreate the iconic garden lawn that we see in the Plants vs Zombies game. Now I know there's different versions of the lawn with swimming pools, etc. But I just want to keep this basic, just light and dark green squares, so we know which ones are the light squares and the dark squares, so we can obviously play the game. But obviously I wanted to try and replicate the game as close as possible. So in order to set things off, I went on to Thingiverse and I just typed in like just regular grass, and I did find this, and it was uploaded by a user called DevStash, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. And basically I put it into matter control, and I made it very low poly, so it didn't it was easy to work with. I didn't have to wait for the computer to render long waiting times. And then after a bit of messing about, I basically came up with this, which is 2 rows of 4. So this is basically going to be in sections, so it's going to be like 4 rows of these on either side, so it's going to be 8 in total. So all in all, the maths should work out, so that would make a basic chessboard of 64 squares. So yeah, power of maths. So once I had mathematically worked out the diameter of what the chessboard squares would come to, I then went ahead and made a frame for it. Now you might notice there's these like little red square dots at the bottom. Basically those are going to be like garden stones to basically sell the illusion that this is a garden that obviously the zombies and the plants are fighting on. So these are just going to be the perimeter of the garden. So basically just a frame around a garden-esque scene.
Silence, you fool! So
after making the frame digitally, I wanted to make sure that all the pieces of the chessboard would fit snugly inside, and I'm over the moon to say yes it did. It fit perfect. So yeah, so this is roughly what it should look like once it's printed, but obviously we can't. I have my 3D printer, my filament printers are nowhere near big scale to print this all off in one go. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to dissect these up into smaller, more manageable chunks, and then we can go ahead and print them out, and then yeah, hopefully they'll all go back together just like a jigsaw puzzle. So yeah, wish me luck.
It's been 84 years.
Okay guys, so it took a long time, but as you can see here, it's all been printed off, it's all level, and it's all worked out brilliantly. So I think there's only one test file that kind of warped, so when I was first started printing it. So as you can see there's 2 parts in the middle there that are different filament. Basically I just ran out of white filament and I just used this like a metallic-y kind of orangey colour that I already had. So that's the only real difference between it all. But yeah, so now that we've got it all mapped out, I can take some measurements and we can start thinking about cutting up some wood for a nice base. So once I had all the measurements pre-measured, for the next stage I went to my local B&Q store and I bought myself a really big single sheet of I believe it's called plywood. And yeah, once I got it home, I just set up the 2 different workbenches in my back garden. As you can see there, plenty of clamps keeping it in place. And just took me time, measured out exactly where it needed to be, used a nice steel beam to make sure that when I run the jigsaw across, It doesn't go anywhere. It's a nice flush cut, and yeah, just drove it past once, and then made arrangements to do some more measurements on the other side, trimmed that edge off as well, and then once I had my overall chessboard shape, for the next stage I went in with a bench sander just to smooth down those sides.
Alright.
Okay, so now that all the parts are already printed, for the next stage we need to go ahead and start mapping out and putting them in place, and hopefully gluing them and securing them so they don't move anywhere. So yeah, so just going to go ahead and take my time and make sure I get the outside circumference frame done first. So when these are painted up, these are going to mimic like the garden stones that depict the shape of the garden and the end, where the garden starts and ends. So basically a divide between you and your neighbours, I suppose. So yeah, so the main grass itself is going to be the chess board. That's where you're going to play your game. But these stones are going to just be like a nice offset frame around it, just basically to make it look more garden-esque, if you like. So yeah, so once I went ahead and did all the sides, it was then time to go ahead and map out the rest of the board. So I'm just going to do a fast forward edit now just to show you how that all came together. So now that I know that it all fits rather nice, for the next stage I'm going to take it all apart. I'm going to store the pieces in a nice safe place, and I'm going to go in with a sharp knife, and I'm just going to basically add some zigzag score marks to the surface of the wood, and then basically that just goes a long way to when we go to add these tiles later with the glue. It just gives the glue something to hold on to, so you got a much firmer grip by the end of it.
What?
And now that we've got everything mapped out in place, for the next stage I'm going to go in with some Gorilla Glue. Now, a bit of a confession here, this Gorilla Glue has gone a little bit on the stale side. So if you basically put it in a tub, reactivate it with water, stir it around, you can make a paste with it which will harden just like the regular glue does. So a little bit of a life hack there if you've got some of this stuff in the garage that has passed its sell-by date. So yeah, so just give it a really good stir with a little bit of water in there just to melt things down a little bit. And then after a good 10 minutes of getting that mixture back into the original bottle, we're now good to go and start gluing all the pieces in place. So I'm going to shut up now and I'm just going to show you the fast forward footage of me putting it all together.
Hours later.
Okay guys, so I went ahead and left the first half to fully harden, well basically overnight, a good probably 24 hours before I got back to it. And just so everything is nice and solid and I don't have to worry about if I had the other side, I'm accidentally pushing the front part over to the left, or anything like that. So I don't have to worry about any of it. It's all nice, solid, stuck in place, and now everything I add from now on, I don't have to worry about it moving, if that made any sense.
What?
Okay, looking good. Let's go ahead and leave that to fully dry.
3,000 whoop-hoos later.
Okay, so after leaving that all night to fully cure, I have to admit it's starting to take shape now, and I am happy with the results so far. But we have some edges that are a little bit protruding past the frame, so I'm just going to go in with my trusty sander and I'm just going to sand it nice and smooth so it's all nice and flush to what we've made so far.
Alright.
And now that that's all nicely smooth, for the next stage I want to make sure that everything is neatly glued in place. So I'm going to go in with that thin down watery Gorilla Glue, and I'm going to basically just squeeze it into all the little nooks and crannies, and maybe a little bit over the surface area as well, just to make sure that once all this dries, this is all nice one and solid piece, and I don't have to worry about any warping, I don't have to worry about any parts coming apart later. So after leaving that all night to fully cure, the next day I set up a little hobby workbench in the back garden, and I got myself a nice grey prime rattle can, and then I just took my time to get into all the nooks and crannies and then just give it a nice grey prime. So obviously it's not going to stay grey primed, it's just so the paint, future paint application has something to stick to. So after a good 5 hours drying in the sun, I then had to bring the chessboard into the garage because good old British weather, it started to rain. So brought it back in, and then I got a white primer, and the reason why I'm going in with white now, because most people will be looking at this saying, Frank, why didn't you just start with white primer? Why did you go in with grey? Bit of a confession time. Basically, I only had like quarter of a can left of white prime, and I knew it wasn't enough to completely blitz this. So I thought I'd go over with grey prime first, lighten it all up, let it dry, and then just basically just do a top general coat over the top, and then it'll be the same effect, but I don't have to go out to the shops to buy another white prime. So yeah, just me being a bit lazy there.
You blundering fool!
So after letting the white dry, I then decided to flip it 180 degrees to the side and go in with some jet black also from my aerosol can. And same again, still raining outside, so I'm going to have to work on the inside here, and I'm just going to give this a couple of coats. And then this is just so we don't have to, there's no point doing detailed paint work on the surface and then applying a black under base later on. It's easier to get that over and done with now, and I don't have to worry about it, and then after we go ahead and seal it, we can just flip it over way, and then hopefully we don't get none of those pesky scratches.
3 hours later.
And now that had dried, for the next stage I went in with a nice clear gloss varnish, and I'm going to take my time once again, but this time I'm going to give it at least 2 coats to fully cure, and then it should go a long way to protecting this in the long run.
5 hours later.
And once the varnish had dried, I then went in with some felt pad sets, and then basically these are just hammered into the corners, and then they elevate the board up off the ground, so same again, just goes a long way to not having any unwanted scratches on the underside of the board. So yeah, so just going to go in with a little fine drill bit first, drill a little channel hole, and then just hammer it into shape, and then just do that times by 4. And now that I know that those are all sat flush, for the next stage we need to secure them in place, so I'm going to go back in with Gorilla Glue. So this is a brand new Gorilla Glue because the other one ran out, so I'm going to use the proper stuff this time rather than the more watered down version. And then after a quick 180 flip round, we went in with some barely black paint from a tester pot, and then this is just gonna start laying the foundations to the stones. So when it comes to painting stones, you usually find that it's easier to paint darker to light. So you get into all nooks and crannies first, and then we can dry brush lighter phases or stages later on. So talking about those lighter stages, for the next stage we're going to go in with some meadow mushroom, same again from a tester pot. Now this is just basically a very light grey, and then same again, I'm just going to use a fixed stipple brush to dry brush over what we've already painted with a barley black, and then that just goes a long way to start mimicking some stones. So, as soon as we're slinging paint around, for the next stage I'm going to go in with some livery green from Game Colour, and we're going to start adding the lighter squares to the chessboard. So in a regular game these would be the white squares, but obviously because this game is depicted on a garden lawn with light patches and dark patches of grass, that's what we're going to try and recreate. So I'm just going to go in and get into all the little nooks and crannies and paint the white spaces. So while that livery green is drying, for the next stage I'm going to go in with some surface primer, which is basically like a mud brown colour, and I'm going to use a very thin brush, and I'm going to get into all the little nooks and crannies around where the stone should be, basically just to mimic mud, because all lawns have mud.
No way! Yes way!
And then once that had dried, I then went in and carefully peeled off my very beautifully articulately placed masking tape. So basically this was just a step that I forgot to mention, just to keep those black edges nice and crisp. Okay guys, we're at the halfway point roughly, and I just wanted to say, if you're enjoying this video, please slap that like button, and if you want to be a really awesome viewer, why not hit the subscribe button, because you really don't want to miss out on future builds that we've got in the pipeline, and we have got some cool stuff coming up. So, back to the video. And what good chessboard would be without the dark squares? So in order to achieve those, I'm going to go in with some dark green and a nice thick straight edge brush, and I'm going to go ahead and take my time, and I'm going to paint or paint as cleanly as possible all the black squares, or dark green squares in this case. So yeah, fast forward montage, go!
Let's move, 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 move! Nobody got time for that.
So for the next stage I'm going to go in with just some regular PVA glue, and I'm going to take my time and get into all the little nooks and crannies of the frame, and then we're going to go ahead and scatter some of this stuff, which is some scenic grass scatter. Now you normally use these with like railway kind of terrain, so but it works really well for like little small grass or maybe moss. So I'm just going to get in there, I'm going to wipe away any excess that drips down the side, and then once it's all looking like it's all nice and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and start scattering.
hours later.
So after that dried, it worked really well, but as you can see here, some of the tiles, even though I've tried to go as straight as possible, they still kind of a little bit wonky, so there's no way around that apart from one idea, which is I go in with the same steps with the grass scatter and we go ahead and make a zigzag line pattern.
And here we go.
And after a good few hours of fully drying, I then put it on its side and then gently shook off the excess. So after shaking it off, Taylor Swift style, I then realised that I couldn't remember which corner is light square or dark square. And even though I've played chess for, well, pretty much all my life, I always tend to forget which corner goes in which corner. So, which colour goes in which corner, should I say. So, in order to combat that, I decided, why don't I make this board a little bit more themed like the games. So, after doing a little bit of research on my phone, I then realised that it's dark square bottom left. So if you're playing as white, it's dark square bottom left. So, in order that I don't make that mistake in the future, I thought, why don't I incorporate the little iconic garden fence on either side, and then maybe some shrubbery behind it as well.
10 seconds later.
So after a lot of tinkering around in matter control, I ended up making these, which is a basic kind of garden looking fence that I thought would work really well with capturing the feel from the games. So just gonna print this off into, well, maybe 2 parts, or possibly, if I can fit on the printing bed, maybe in one go. It's gonna be a hard fit, but overall I think it is doable. So yeah, let's go ahead and get printing.
8 hours later.
Okay, so here it is, fresh off the printer, and as you can see there's quite a bit of cleanup needing on this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean this all up, and then I'll see you in a couple of seconds.
5 billion years later.
Okay, so here they are, all cleaned up, and I've managed to get rid of all those stringy little bits that you usually get with 3D printing. So as you can see, they're printed off into 2 different halves because the first test didn't really go very well. So yeah, for the next stage I need to go ahead and make these a little bit more solider. So we're just going to go in with just some regular wood filler and put a little bit on our fingers, and then just rub it over the surface details. And then when we go to prime this later on, that should fill in all those unwanted layer lines. So now that these have been given a nice grey prime and left to dry, as you can see there, they're starting to mimic more of a traditional white picket fence. So as you can see there, there's a seam in the middle, and that is a weak point. So we need to go ahead and recreate one of these end bits, but with 2 centre grooves tuck out the middle, so everything should line up nice, lovely jubbly.
Yay, lovely jubbly!
So yeah, I'm just going to use regular old super glue to just go ahead and bridge the gap, and then I've got another ace up my sleeve later on, which I'll talk to you about in a bit, but for now, good old super glue to the rescue. So, talking about that ace up my sleeve, as you can see here, we have these boards that are sprued across the fence, keeping the fence intact, I suppose, because obviously this is supposed to be old and neglected. So I thought these would be a great way to help bridge that gap in the middle. So it's not only pinned at the back, it'll also be pinned at the front. So I went ahead and printed off a few more singular boards and then decided to add 3. So one on the left, one right bang in the middle, and then one on the right. And then that should make this a lot stronger and a lot more game accurate. And now for the next stage, I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple of coats of white primer, just so it's starting to resemble more a fence rather than just something I knocked up in the 3D printer. So now that we've detoured and we decided to add a fence so I can keep track on which colour squares in the corner, yeah, we're going to go ahead and go over where we did some of those garden tiles on the side. So that means we have to incorporate some kind of mud, because obviously that's where the fence will be secured underground. So I'm going to have to go over some of these tiles. So I'm going to go back in with some PVA glue, and then I'm going to add some of this stuff, which is this like scenic sand scatter. Same again from Model Railway, I believe it's made by Jarvis. And then going to leave it fully dry overnight, and then the next day we can go ahead and apply some watered down PVA with a little bit of brown acrylic paint mixed in, so that once again left to dry it should make this nice and solid. And then once that was drying, I then went in with some various colours of paint, and then I decided to add a bunch of little flowers because we see those on the lawn in the game. And now that all of that is painted, for the next stage we need to go ahead with some kind of varnish, and we need to seal it all. So I'm going to go in with a rattle can, and I've decided to go with a gloss varnish rather than a matte varnish, just so it makes it look a little bit cartoonish, which is the feel we're going for. So in order to secure these, I just went ahead and added a little metal pin system to the bottom of the main centre struts of the fence. So on the left, in the centre, and on the right. And then drilled some channel holes in the board and just basically just glued them in place, and then I secured them in nice and straight with some clamps. And then just left them a good few hours to fully dry, and yeah, and then for the next stage we can start thinking about adding some kind of bush foliage.
Huh?
So for the next part we need to go ahead and recreate some bushes / shrubbery. So I went to my local B&M store and I found these, and they were $2.99 each. Yes, only $2.99. And yeah, I thought that these would work really well. So they look like they're just stuck in some kind of polystyrene. So as you can see there, that was really easy to get out. So I need to go ahead and take this apart and see if we can use it somehow in clumps rather than adding them individually.
A few moments later.
But yeah, for now, this is what it all looks like separate. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same with this bad boy, and then we can go ahead and use this in the next part. So in order to fasten these, basically I just took 2 of the separate leaves, if you like, or little clumps, and then just put a little nail under, like in the middle of each one, so the house together on top of each other, and then just go ahead and just drill a bunch of channel holes in the side of the chessboard, and then I drill 90% of the way, and then I carefully hammer in the last 10% of the nail, so I don't have to worry about the nail like cracking any of the 3D printed parts, because that would be a pain in the butt. So yeah, so just basically that last little 10% gently hammered in will help secure these in place, and then obviously a little bit of super glue won't go amiss neither. So now that I've finished one side, I'm just going to flip it 180 degrees, and then I'm just going to do the other side.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
And with that, Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll do it later. Oh, hi guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Me myself, I've really enjoyed it myself. It's been a very unique build. Can definitely say it's unique. I've had fun with it, I have to admit, and yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it too. So if you have, please hit that like button, share on Facebook and Twitter or X or wherever it's called these days, because it helps new people find, well, this. And yeah, I really appreciate it. And yeah, if you want to see more builds in this category, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on, well, those builds really. And if you want to be a legendary viewer, please take 5 minutes, check out my Patreon page, all links below, where with a bit of support and a bit of help we can do these videos full time rather than part time, which, well, it means a lot more work for me, but it also means a lot more content and entertainment for you guys. So yeah, hope you liked it, and see you in the next one. Goodbye. If you like the content that I'm making, you'd like to support my work, here is a few links in the description, but only if you can afford it, and thanks for watching. See you in the next one.